Ooh, baby, the Cup's back in the building, and we got the Friday feelings on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. What's working for these Oilers aside from McDavid's magic? We'll talk about it all. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the official lab for fantasy hockey and gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steel Roden. And on this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. You know what it is, my friends. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down every single day, making us your first listen Monday through Friday. We're here to get y'all in and out in 30 minutes with all of the fantasy hockey and hockey news. Of course, big time bets. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Ultimate Hockey GM. Ever dreamed of being an NHL DM and managing your own franchise? Now you can with Ultimate Hockey GM. It's a completely free, and for Locked On listeners, they get a 100% free boost on their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. Download the game right now. Visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. Steel, the Florida Panthers are trying to put themselves into the first stage of a dynasty and winning a cup tonight. They're going to be in tough in Edmonton. You and I haven't talked about the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers the last couple of days. We've done a lot of that over the last week and change, but we've been talking D-men, which will continue tomorrow on the Saturday special. Steel and I will wrap up our countdown along with any other news popping out of the NHL right now, Steel, because it's buzzing. So over to you with a question. I don't always do this, but I'm going to hit you with a question right off the jump because for me, it's all I've been thinking about. You and I have been all over the Panthers in terms of betting the last couple of games. We thought it was over twice. We were wrong. Should the Panthers be a nervous bunch, or do they head into Edmonton confident as ever? You're on mute, brother, although I'm excited to hear this one.
Mute button, of course, gets me once again. It seems to be a reoccurring factor at least once a week. But look, I believe the Florida Panthers are a nervous bunch right now, and they should be a nervous bunch. Connor McDavid with back-to-back 4+ point games, which hasn't been done since Wayne Gretzky in the Stanley Cup Finals.
That's never been done. That's never been done.
Back-to-back
4 point nights have been never
that's
done.
incredible in itself. Yeah. But Connor McDavid is doing McJesus, McMagic stuff. Yeah. Evan Bouchard on the point. You know, you got Zach Hyman on the board. You're getting Leon Draisaitl on the board. You're getting points from Ryan McLeod. You're getting points from the bottom six depth group.
Great point.
So they need to be a nervous bunch right now because the way Stuart Skinner is playing, as well just in the entirety of the Stanley Cup Finals, he's been super solid for the Edmonton Oilers. And it seems like the Edmonton Oilers have now gotten to Sergei Bobrovsky. They've found the weak spot. They've gotten to him quick and fast in both games, games 4 and games 5. They should be a nervous bunch going back to Edmonton, back in their barn on the road, obviously, after another slapping, if you will. So I think they should be a little bit nervous. They should be a nervous bunch going into it. Look, they've got the Stanley Cup on the line. Both teams have the Stanley Cup on the line, but the Florida Panthers have been 1 win away for 2 games now. 2 games. They were up 3-0 in this series. Now they're up 3-2. They've lost the last 2 in pretty good fashion, especially the 8-1 win in Game 4. They need to be a nervous bunch going into this. That doesn't mean that should stop them from playing their game and what they've done all season. But there's definitely going to be some butterflies in the stomach for a lot of the Florida Panthers players.
See, this is why I love doing this show with you, because you just teed up. And by the way, I've been in the bag early and often this morning into the notes and the statistics on this one, Steel. So buckle up for a little bit of a rough ride on this morning's episode. However, that is the first time ever in NHL history that a player has gone back-to-back 4-point nights in the Stanley Cup final ever. Wayne Gretzky hasn't done it. Lemieux, Howe, whoever. Never done. That signed frame on the wall, Steel, that I was talking about maybe not leaving, that bad boy is staying where it is unless someone's coming along with a big chunk of change. However, you also alluded to it with Stuart Skinner, and I think this is where some of the nerves for the Florida Panthers might start to set in, because we know what happens when a confident goaltender starts to roll. Cough, cough, Aiden Hill. Look at what happened just a year ago for the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm not trying to compare Stuart Skinner to Aiden Hill. All I'm trying to say is when the going get toughs, Stuart Skinner gets going. In games 4 through 7 in this postseason, just combined all games 4 through 7, 8-0, 1.38 goals against, and a 9.44 save percentage and a shutty. This guy is emerging as a clutch performer. I know it's a small sample size with one playoffs here now, a deep run. If he wins a cup, it's not going to matter. And I know that's a big ask, and I'm not getting there just yet, Steele. We're going to talk about bets. We're going to get to Game 6 tee-up just in terms of that McDavid magic, and then maybe we can go to break because we'll keep this bad boy tight. Is, once again, records being broken for Connor McDavid. He now sits behind only Wayne Gretzky in terms of career point per game at 1.63 points per game. He's only behind Wayne Gretzky at 1.84.
Wow.
There is no one better to ever average this many points per game in the history of the NHL, and that is just barely better than 1.61, a guy named Mario Lemieux. So now we're seeing something that if before anyone for any shred of any reason that you were going to listen to was bringing any sort of hate that this wasn't the best player maybe to ever do it, honestly, then they don't get to come into this conversation ever with us. You know, I love these statistics.
Yeah, I mean, those are some. Anytime we talk about statistics and anytime we talk about history being broken, it seems like there's only one name, maybe two. It's always Wayne Gretzky, potentially Mario Lemieux, and it's always Connor McDavid breaking those records. So this is absolutely incredible that we're able to witness this part of NHL history right now. Even honestly, with Evan Bouchard and what he's doing on the blue line.
Great point. Yes,
Evan Bouchard again. We're going to continue the conversation of top 15 defensemen on tomorrow's episode. We're going to get to the top 5 on both of our lists. But Evan Bouchard is putting himself in that conversation. We talked about it a few weeks ago, perhaps, about Evan Bouchard putting himself in a conversation, not on the Cale Makar level of talent and skill-wise when we're talking from the NHL aspect. Fantasy-wise, though, he's put himself in the same tier, in the same category as the top defenseman, Cale Makar, and maybe
different
another
players as
defenseman
well.
out there. Different players, they play a little bit of a different game, but the fantasy aspect, the fantasy point-wise, they're in that same level and they're in that same tier. So alongside Connor McDavid, we're getting Evan Bouchard at 24 years old, showing us what he's capable of. Like you said yesterday yesterday's episode, we understand he's playing with the best player in the game right now. But when you're playing with the best, you get the best. And Evan Bouchard is bringing his best right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
3 points in a Stanley Cup final elimination game, 24th, 5th, and 6th assists. Only 2 defensemen have done 4 or more points other than Evan Bouchard. He is now putting himself in the category of Bobby Orr and others. That's equally as impressive, if not more impressive, for a younger player, a guy who's come out a little bit of nowhere. Everyone knows about Connor McDavid. I'm not trying to say that's not impressive either, but coming where Evan Bouchard's a little bit more off the mark, off the map. And in fantasy, we've had our eyes on him the last couple of years, but you know what I'm saying in terms of the general public. However, we're going to keep talking about this deal because I got some more stats. I got to give some love to this Edmonton third line, and we're going to get to our same game parlays. However, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Ultimate Hockey GM. Locked On fans, you gotta hear about our favorite new mobile game. Have you ever dreamed about becoming an NHL GM and managing your own franchise? You think you could run the old Leafers better than the current GM, Mr. Treliving? Well, your dream can come true, and most definitely it can happen right now for free. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances. And if you think you got a love for the game, you got to be checking out the Ultimate Hockey GM app. Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. Check that out today. Download the game. Visit hockeygm.app. That's hockeygm.app, or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review and make sure you make the switch from Fox Sports or ESPN to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest and top stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, or you can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Flip, one of your Western Conference teams continues to amaze us in the Stanley Cup Finals. You were on the Edmonton Oilers all season long, even from the Jay Woodcroft days of when they were at the bottom of the NHL. They're in the Stanley Cup Finals. They're down one game right now to the Florida Panthers, 2 wins away from hoisting Lord Stanley and being the first Canadian team in 30-plus years to win the Stanley Cup Finals. Continuing the conversation, though, you've got all the stats, you've got all the statistics and record-breaking moments right now. What are we looking at?
Baby. I want to just first of all talk about that penalty kill and how good it's been for the Edmonton Oilers. But I also want to bring up a point that when I was looking into the numbers from Game 5, sidebar, 8.5 million people tuned in for Game 5, Steele.
Yeah.
That's up over 60% from last year's Game 5. This is what happens when McDavid's going and you have a big market team in South Florida for the American side of things. I know big market in terms of hockey, it's not, but a lot of people in South Florida watch hockey. You know that probably better than most. I know you got family down there. They support their teams, and it's just really good for the game to see the numbers increase. So I wanted to throw that out there because the numbers I'm looking at for this Edmonton Oilers team, and I'm not taking anything away from their 2 wins, but when you remove McDavid, and I know Stuart Skinner played well. The third line was sensational. Connor Brown, Matthias Janmark, who's the other guy? Henrique deserve a lot of credit as well. But when you remove the magic of Connor McDavid and you peel into these numbers, McDavid's been losing his faceoffs at an alarming rate. And in Game 5, the Florida Panthers almost won their faceoffs at a 60% clip compared to 40 for the Edmonton Oilers. Then you look into some other things. They get out-hit by almost 3-1. They get outshot by a big amount as well, Steele. So I want to leave it at this when I look into those numbers. Am I going to take away from the Edmonton Oilers? No. And their penalty kill has been sensational. That's the other point that I'm spitting out all in hot fashion here. But I think as much as 5-3 is 5-3 and it's a sound beating, and then after 8-1, which was the most sound beating we've seen of this Florida Panthers team all postseason long, I'm not trying to get overly hype here, but this Florida Panthers team is still very much right there on the cusp.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing those numbers, though, the Edmonton Oilers, I know they're feeling good about themselves. They better bring it from the opening toe because this is going to be a bloodbath tonight in Edmonton. The Florida Panthers are going to throw the kitchen sink at this team from the opening puck drop.
Yeah, and you got to think that there's going to be some butterflies in the Florida Panthers going into Game 6 in Edmonton, but Paul Maurice is going to reel them back in and get them going, like you said, from puck drop. Before we continue this conversation, a little bit of a side story. I feel like I have to come on here and talk about the final minute and a half of Game 5.
Yeah,
the Matthew Tkachuk save was absolutely insane.
Yes.
Throws his body on the line. He swipes it off the goal line. And then the worst of the worst, Oliver Ekman-Larsson gives up on the play. He just started skating off into the corner while Connor McDavid picked up the puck and put it into the empty net. Again, I see this all over social media and Twitter. If I was Matthew Tkachuk, I would have been furious with Oliver Ekman-Larsson for giving up on that play after what he just ended up doing and saving that goal in a 4-3 game. Obviously, McDavid puts it away with that empty netter, but I don't know what Ekman-Larsson was thinking. It wasn't in. Maybe he thought it was in, but he gave up on the play. He skated away to the corner and didn't even try going for the puck when Connor McDavid had it. So
it was a wild finish.
It was a wild finish. Number one, Matthew Tkachuk may have made the save of the postseason, even though it went in just 5 seconds later. And then Oliver Ekman-Larsson just gave up on his team there. I know they were still down, but there was still some time left. If you can get the puck up the ice, you never know what happens. So I had to come on here and mention that.
I appreciate that because when I look at what's going to have to go down in Game 6, and I have this note here that one of the main things that have worked for this Florida Panthers team all playoffs long is their relentless forecheck. It's given teams fits. And I also have here the fact that Connor McDavid just did what he did going up against the best defensive forward in the NHL in Alexander Barkov is even more impressive, Steele, because everyone's been out here giving Barkov his flowers about how good he is, Selke Trophy winner, and all of those things are well deserved. But the fact that McDavid is doing this with him all over his tail is just a whole other level. So I also need to say the Edmonton Oilers have done a really good job at counteracting that forecheck with tight, quick breakouts and elite stretch passes that has basically been rendering that forecheck much less effective. So I'm excited to hear what you think about that take. I'm excited to hear about your same game parlays. And I'll leave it, I like to say leave it at this. The Conn Smythe odds deal that I mentioned when you and I came on here and spoke about Conn Smythe odds about a week or so ago, 4 or 5 episodes ago. And I said Connor McDavid at plus 950. If they manage to win the next couple of games and he has good nights, now take a look at it. Those numbers have jumped around in a very aggressive fashion, Steele.
What's he at?
I'm going to bring it up right now because as much as I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but that is the term. McDavid is minus 220 now, Steele.
Dude, toot all the way. You called it. You called it.
Plus 950. I said throw a 20. Your boy was right on that one. Run the tape back. And now, even if the Florida Panthers take it tonight, he even gets one more point, he's winning it. He's going to win it. So there you go. I hope you listened to Uncle Flip's tip back then. And I got a couple more coming up here for my same game parlay tonight. My odds, my payout are a little bit low, Steele, but I'm just looking for some win. I'm looking for a little bankroll headed into the summer. It's golf season, baby, and we need a little bit of bankroll.
Yeah, we need some loot for those rounds because those rounds are very expensive, especially
They're
up
creeping
here in the Muskoka area. They're creeping up there. We're going to continue talking about some key players for Game 6. We're also going to talk about same game parlays once we come back from the sponsor read. But this episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Flip, before we get to the same game parlays, real quickly, going into Game 6, who are you looking at from the Florida Panthers side of things to really step up and close this finals out and win the Stanley Cup? Because the last 2 games, they've looked very, very bad.
I think the obvious answer would be who I alluded to already in Sasha Barkov, Alexander Barkov, and Gustav Forsling, the 2 guys that have really been shutting down the opposition. However, I'm looking to the guy that did it for them all last postseason and brought them all the way there, and it's Matthew Tkachuk. I know he has been there at times during this series, but he needs to be his swaggery, effective difference maker like self. Maybe that's an obvious choice as well, Steele, but Matthew Tkachuk for me, because a lot of people would say Barkov, they'd say Bobrovsky. For me, it's got to be Matthew Tkachuk. He's got to be a difference maker at both ends of the ice. He has to be an agitator. He's got to walk that line. That's him in his game. That's what he does as a difference maker. So I'm looking at Matthew Tkachuk. That's who I'm looking at big time. I still think, though, Steele, looking at the numbers, looking at everything that I said, take away McDavid magic, I think these games are a lot closer than you think. And I'm still,
oh yeah, of course.
I'm still, even though I'm copping out a little bit, I'm still riding with the Panthers.
Ride with the Panthers. I can't remember. I believe we both had the Panthers winning winning the Stanley Cup Finals. I believe I said in 7.
I think we both did.
I think we both said the
I
Florida
may have
Panthers
said
in
Panthers
7.
in 6, but I'm not going to be that bold and say it. I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, we'll have to check the replay, check the tape on that
Which is
one. But
funny because I
we
was
both,
on the Oilers from the beginning of
yeah,
the year. It's just when I saw everything from what the Florida Panthers have done to get themselves
100%.
here, that's where I was at. And Steele, after the first 3 games, you and I were looking like we were kind of knowing what we were talking about. Not so much now. However, that's going to change with
Well,
big time bets. Over to you, brother.
we might know what we're talking about since it's actually going 6 or 7 games now. So
True.
the Florida Panthers are still
Thank
up.
you.
We still know what we're talking about. We're
Thank
gonna
you.
have to check the tape on that one before big time bets. I just got to throw this name out there for
Mm.
me, who I think needs to
Yeah, who
step
you
up
looking at?
in this game. Carter Verhaeghe needs to make a difference
Mhm.
in this next game. The last 5 games for Carter Verhaeghe, 1 goal, and that was in game 1 in the 3-0 shutout win. The last 3 games, he's been a -3 each game. He's been -9 the last 3 games. He's brought nothing offensively
Whoa.
in the last 4 games for
See,
the
now
Florida
that's a good
Panthers.
stat.
Carter Verhaeghe definitely needs to be one of those players alongside Matthew
Respect.
Tkachuk, Sasha
Respect.
Barkov, and Sergei Bobrovsky to step up in this game 6, as
Mhm.
well as if it goes to game 7. Needs to bring the offensive touch. He has 18 points in 22 games, 0 points in the last 4. So I'm looking at Carter Verhaeghe. You're looking at Matthew Tkachuk. We're looking at big time bets right now where the money is made. Flip over to you, my brother.
Giddy
What are
up.
you looking at right now?
Well, man's got an appointment to make, Steele, so let's get this off the chest real quick. I'm looking at 4 picks, not 3 tonight, because no, I didn't want to just boost up the odds. I'm just worried that this might be my last chance to bet on hockey for a long time, so I'm squeezing in another one for the juice. Leon Draisaitl had only 1 shot on goal last time. You and I were both on 3+ shots, something that he had done previously in games 3 and 4. I'm back on Leon Draisaitl because he knows he can't leave it all to 97. And Leon
Yeah.
Draisaitl is just as a good clutch performer as Connor McDavid. McDavid's doing special things right now, but Leon Draisaitl's number in the postseason are also unreal. He is going to be all over that biscuit. Give me 3+ shots on goal. You're getting that at -165, Steele. That's my first pick. Second pick, even though I am riding with the Florida Panthers on the puck line, I'm copping out +1.5. Sue me. I love +1.5 because I do think this will be a 1-goal game. Also, the Edmonton Oilers are going to get theirs. Connor McDavid, 1 anytime point. It's minus like 550 or something, but you combine it with this and my lock of the night, under 6.5. I'm feeling that Stuart Skinner's numbers are going to continue in elimination games, Steele, and I wanted to bring this up for you. A 4-0 record in elimination games this postseason. 97 shots against, only 6 goals allowed, and a .930 save percentage. So hit me with the under 6.5 to round out my same game parlay. All 4 of those picks are going to give you a payout at +366, which I'm also really feeling. So give me Leon Draisaitl 3+ shots, McDavid anytime point, Panthers +1.5, and the under 6.5 is my lock of the night.
Love the picks. I do have a slight change in one of those
Oh.
picks once again.
Hit me.
I'm loving the picks, though. I am going with the
Appreciate
over
that.
5.5 in this matchup. So it could both bang out for
Let's
could bang
get
out
lucky,
for both
baby.
of us. Let's get lucky out there. But I've taken the over 5.5 in the last 2 games. I'm taking the over 5.5 again. It's banged out the last 2 times, and yeah, I mean, it just feels like the Edmonton Oilers have found out a secret for Sergei Bobrovsky now, and the Florida Panthers have still gotten their own in this Stanley Cup Finals. So I'm loving the over 5.5 at -160. I'm also taking the Alexander Barkov anytime point at -162, and then I'm finishing that off with. I'm finishing this off with the Edmonton Oilers on the money line. I am going with a money line win for the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh, you want 7?
I want 7. I want it to go the distance. I want more hockey. I can't finish
That's
it
bad
up.
news for your dad and your $100 bet, though, because you want the Oilers now. You're hard on the Oilers train.
It's completely fine with me. If I lose $100 to my dad, it's okay. He fair and square bet. But those 3 picks, Oilers money line, Alexander Barkov anytime point, and over 5.5 will get you an odd of +440 right now. I'm loving those 3 picks. I'm loving your 3 picks as well. So hopefully we get lucky with the under 6.5, over 5.5. But those are the picks. Those are the lock of the night. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making it your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.